And we are live. Hello,
Hi.
lords and ladies of the internet. Welcome back to the Council of Candor. Today, on episode 23, we're going to be doing our normal book club. We're going to be talking about Fahrenheit 451, and as we talked about last week, and if you were in the Discord, you'll see that we also decided to sneak in a little extra book. Little something special for those at home. The book that ended up inspiring Total Recall. That's why
Sick movie, by the way.
Very great movie. And for the record, we can remember it for You Wholesale is way shorter than you'd expect for how crazy that movie gets. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
100% there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It is the story. I mean, it's the same character. Like that's his name.
exact same
So,
character,
like
everything.
it is what it is. Yeah.
All right. So, we have a special lineup of guests for you all today. Of course, I'm still here, suffering for all your entertainments. But we have some new guests today. Our friend Lamb. Lamb, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and why, how excited you are to be a reader with us?
What's up? I'm Lom or Lamb, however you want to say it. I'm 31 and I live in Maryland. I read a lot, so I finished this in about 2 days.
I mean, it's a
Um,
pretty short story, so yeah.
yeah, I usually read I read like 60 pages at a time.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm gonna be going to school soon, so just kind of killing time right now.
Excellent. And he's been a fun member of our server for a while now, and I figured I'd bring him on board to the stream. So that's right, all you at home. You can too join the stream if you're in the server and hang out for a little bit. That's how we've been stuck with Titan for so many times. I love you, Titan, but your Warhammer upsets me. All right. Next up is returning guest Tio. He's been on these a few times.
Hello.
Yes. How you doing, Tio?
Doing well. Could be better. Light cough that I'm hoping I can mute in time.
I hope it's not COVID. I've got 6 friends who have recently come down with it. So apparently this is a special
Honestly,
COVID.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
It could be the sick people, all the old people on the ship. All of them were sick all the time. They got me sick. I am mad.
I can dig it. This is why you don't go with old people. Okay, and next up in our lineup is returning co-host and future channel haver, Mr. Shadow. How you doing, Shadow?
Oh, hey there. I'm doing pretty good. I'm not here to be anyone's father figure this time, but I'm excited. I didn't read this book in school, so I was actually the one who recommended it.
And speaking of the final member of our host today, Mr. Pag, our resident author.
Yep. I did in fact write a book or 4. You can check him out. My pen name is Lex Henderson.
Yep. And he's also
Find him
leaving
on
the
Amazon.
comments.
Hell yeah.
This book,
Really
I got
love
to read
both
this.
these
It's kind
books.
of funny. By the way, I don't want to interrupt for 1 second. Pag here has
Mhm.
recommended that we read The Stars of My Destination every week for, I think, 3 months
Been
straight.
like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time it loses, and this time it was guaranteed to win. And then Shadow recommended Fahrenheit 451, and it barely edged it out. I had to share that first.
I think I was the final vote actually,
Yeah.
because it was the only book that I owned on the list, so I figured I would vote for it.
Well,
I cry every time.
good news. Since
Oh.
you're part of book club, and this is for all you watching, we do try to post free copies of the books that are legal in chat. There's several online internet archives and websites you can get a lot of the books we read from. Also, we tend to skew on the older side of books, so a lot of them are out of copyright, or there are like special versions that are available for the public. So just know that if you do our book club with us, we try to help accommodate those with less financial means to not buy everything.
Mhm.
All right, so go ahead, Pag.
Anyway, yeah, I really like both of these books. I read Fahrenheit 451 in high school, and then I read it again out of high school. I think at least one more time. And then I read it just now, and it still holds up. It's pretty good. I've got some complaints about it, but it's pretty good. The author kind of waxes poetic on how big author dicks are, and I think that's a little silly. Just a little. But otherwise, it's pretty good.
That's a
Yeah,
very
I
common
would
thing
say
I've
so.
seen from authors. It's like
Yeah.
Plato when he wrote, "The greatest government ever would be some sort of dictatorship that a philosopher ruled, like me. That's the best form of government." It's like, oh, really now?
Yeah. It's
Interesting.
amazing that you believe that.
It just
Yeah.
so happens
And then,
the perfect thing is me in charge. Who would have guessed?
yeah, who'd have thought it? And then the other one, the Total Recall book. We Can Sell Your Memories Wholesale. This is the first I read that. I hadn't read it before. I really liked it. I like everything Philip K. Dick does, though. I am going on record and saying I like Dick.
You heard it.
And
yeah.
Mhm,
I'm not the
mhm.
only
Philip
one.
K. Dick,
Exactly.
he's
Yeah.
he's definitely like near the top of the writers. Like if someone asked me to compile a list of my favorite writers, he'd be near the top. I mean, both Ubik and Through a Scanner Darkly are like on my top 10 books, easy. And they're both Philip K. Dick novels. So I have a pretty high opinion of them. Biased, you might say.
Covering him very much so. Now,
I hope so.
I'm going to be making a poll. You probably see me typing it out on stream right now. This is going to run for the entirety of the stream. So, you guys are going to be deciding what are we covering next week. So, let me type that out. What is next week's? Y'all can see how I misspell every few words. Remember, I'm a writer, not a speller.
Nice.
Okay, so
Relatable.
obviously last week we promised a continuation of I'm just going to put defending Rooney, even though we pretty much criticized him too. So defending Rooney.
I was gonna say I wasn't here for that, but I did listen in for a little bit, and it didn't really sound like you were defending Rooney.
I mean, his writing is pretty bad. Gotta be real, his writing's pretty bad. But I mean, everybody's first piece of writing is pretty bad, and that's definitely among his first. That's what's gonna happen. You kind of need you need to be bad before you can be good.
Yes,
And
and
that's
there's
just
also
kind of
another thing, by the
it.
way. This is something to remember that I want all you people who are critical of writers at home, and those of you who are aspiring critics, you will develop taste long before you develop talent. You will be able to recognize why a story is bad that other people have written before you can write a story that's not terrible. So even if his story is terribly written, he might still have good critiques of other stories. Granted, we all here, I think, universally agree his takes on Godzilla are bad, but his takes on a lot of his other stuff is not entirely horrible. So, anyway, so the
Personally, I'm worried about his.
Go ahead.
Personally, I'm worried about his tastes in ancient monster stories, but
yeah, he's a special little boy. We love our Rudy here. All right. The second thing is,
Yeah.
for those of you who have any fascination with anime at all and manga, you probably heard about the My Hero Academia ending. How it was absolutely awful. I will not spoil anything here. Just I'm going to say it's awful. I have been asked by 4 other people to please cover it on my show. I have had private talks with several people, and they have said that, hey, you've got a good A idea, B fix, and C way to like actually critique it down to a minimum. When a lot of these other people who cover anime just are out here going like, it's trash, bro. There's no actual critiques being leveled at why it's so garbage. So I've been asked to cover My Hero Academia. I'm not going to cover it, though, if it gets too far to the zeitgeist, because it's a little bit off course of the channel. But if you guys really want us to cover it, we could do that next week instead. So there's the poll.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Personally, I think we should do Defending Rooney Part 2.
Yeah, I promise Defending Rooney Part 2 will happen no matter what. But the My Hero Academia book, that's going to be next week or not. And I'm going to actually resize chat here for a second. Give me a second, everybody. So I can get the poll on the live stream. So those who watch the VOD later can see exactly what the vote tally's at. All righty then. Now, on to this week's situation. So I had an interesting take that I wanted to share about how I felt about Fahrenheit 451 that I will substantiate throughout this thing. I feel like Fahrenheit 451 and Death Note have the very same energy. Very much the same problem.
Do you now?
Yes.
Interesting.
And
All right, elaborate.
the first half of both of them is the only thing that anybody talks about. It's the best part. It's what's referenced by everybody. The moment we get into the latter part of it, it falls apart, and I never hear anybody talking about it.
I don't know about the latter part. I think the very end, after the Hound, as soon as there's no more Hound, it completely kind of falls apart, and the author starts waxing lyrical and polishing his own knob.
But that's still like 40 pages out of only like 160 pages. That's a third of it.
You ain't wrong. Wrong.
It's a substantial enough part of the story that I still feel like it fits. And I think Death Note, it's season 3 is when L gets taken out of the story, and then like we're stuck with the show for another 2 seasons before it's just kind of like, all right, well, clearly we peaked already. I don't know why we're still here. So it's about it's not exactly half, but it's very clearly the story had a good ending here. You continued it for no reason and like almost ruined your story because you just didn't know how to end it. Didn't quite ruin it though.
So just a little bit more context. I'm not an expert in manga, but I've read other stories by the author of Death Note.
Yeah.
That is a consistent problem with his work.
I believe
he just keeps it going a little too long.
Well, he keeps it going a little too long. He doesn't know how to end his stories. Also, he tends to be a little bit up his own ass.
Yep.
And also, according to some people, according to who you listen to, he might have some unique opinions on women. But none of that is substantiated, so I'm not gonna comment on that. I'll just mention it.
Lisa, I'm pretty sure I understand his opinions of women.
So yeah, every female character is Misa. All his female characters are like that. Not exactly like that. There's some nuance, but a lot of his female characters will give you the same energy.
Now, for those of you who don't know who we're talking about, and you hear why they named a character after the sound Jar Jar makes, yes, that is her entire intelligence. The sounds Jar Jar makes. So,
and he just does that all the time. Like most of his female characters are just ditzes, just brains.
They're either ditzes or they tend to be very, very one-dimensional. He's not excellent at writing women. Even his more competent female character. So, for example, I guess if we're going back to Death Note, there was like the one investigator that he light kills like halfway through the story. All of the female characters who are competent are like that. They either die or they get married. and then that's it. They're just like, I'm married now. I'm not going to do anything else.
I can't possibly think of another outcome for a woman except for death and marriage. I'm only a writer here. My imagination is limitless, and I can't come up with anything. Therefore, it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
exactly. He also has interesting opinions on politics, but we don't need to talk about the
opinions on politics. But don't worry.
So true.
So true.
Oh, hi, George R. R. Martin. What are you doing here?
Everyone, man. I swear, authors have the worst political opinions ever. It's fascinating. Like every time one of them opens their mouth, I'm like, really? You believe the stupidest thing?
Hey, wait. Those are some big words. The worst? What about actors?
Okay, actors don't actually have political opinions, though. They have what they've been told to say. Actors are good at reading a script, so I believe that they're told their politics, a lot of them. And a lot of them go off of feelings. Whereas, like, authors, for the most, like, again, we're not talking Tumblr people and just, like, amateurs. I'm talking most professional people. You're well-educated and well-read enough that I expect you to know a bit better. It's like, I'm not mad at the 5-year-old for trying to eat candy all day. It's a little bit weird what the 30-year-old does, though.
I would like to say that as an author,
don't call out Boogie like this.
By the way, I do want to say this is not a political stream. However, the funniest thing ever is that the new VP for Kamala Harris has got. He's bragging about how he only drinks Diet Mountain Dew. And I remember thinking, the only other person I know who drinks Diet Mountain Dew is Boogie, and another person I know in real life is a terrible person. That's just a terrible sign right there. I don't know. I'm sure if you drink Diet Mountain Dew, chat, you're a lovely person, but I've never met somebody who drinks Diet Mountain Dew I did not hate. I'm sorry.
If you drink Diet Mountain Dew, I want to spit in your face.
It's the only thing that brings me joy in life.
Exactly.
After the stream, someone remind me to share my uncle's name for Mountain Dew.
I can't wait. All right, you hear that, chat? Come join the Discord. You get to find out the special uncle word. So, speaking of special uncles,
Don't say that.
let's talk about Fahrenheit 451. Now,
You know,
I'm
my
sure
uncle
all of you in
Joel-
chat have been beaten to death with the politics of this thing and the symbolism and themes. We're probably going to talk about that because that's the important part here. But I also want to talk about it as a story because I find that writing something that's a political screed or has good ideas is useless if you can't tell a story with it. Because, like, that's the point of an author. You're mostly a storyteller here. Entertain me, and I will understand your ideas better. So, what I think we all basically said we kind of liked the book or really liked it. Anybody have any thoughts they want to open up with here?
Yeah, Mildred is the worst character in all of fiction.
I don't know about that, but she is pretty awful.
She definitely is on my list of I don't like yous. Up there with Joffrey.
I will say, reading this for the first time, I was surprised that there was an audiobook at all when I read the first half. It was only until I got to the ending where I was like, oh, okay. A lot of this kind of read early on as technology bad, especially with TVs and stuff. And they don't exactly go actually technology is good. They don't ever really do that. But they do kind of go at the end that it's not just about like books are the important thing in this story, but the ending is it doesn't just have to be books. Books are just a medium for the important thing, which I think was good.
Yeah.
I think that was a very good ending.
Oh,
go ahead, Theo.
Oh, you just gave me a total like brain. They keep on going. So much about this is just going on and on about the importance of books. But anyone who has ever done anything for theater knows that is the exact opposite of what you want with like a Shakespeare. Shakespeare's things are not meant to be done as books, but they talk. I see at least 4 mentions of Shakespeare in this book. That's
funny.
I feel like that kind of goes against some of the themes of this because Shakespeare was not meant to be consumed as a book. It was never as a book for traditional audiences. Yeah, something that you see live.
He does kind of shit on like adapting things. He does kind of directly say like adapting things down from their like original medium is bad. But I don't know. I don't think that's exactly the message.
I think
that's not the message, but it was something that I think he overlooked that I think kind of hurts the point because it's meant to be so much more like live, interactive, not just something that you can set down and pick up whenever you want. That's the exact opposite of what a play is.
Yeah.
That's true.
I can agree with that.
As stories, I think Shakespeare's plays are pretty good to read, though. Like just through, I don't know if they're as good as seeing a live theater production of Shakespeare, but I think they're good to read as stories.
I think Shakespeare in general is just high enough quality that just reading it is still very good.
Yeah,
I think that's a testament to quality. And also gets adapted into other mediums. And that's another thing, speaking of like him like kind of shitting on adaptations, but not really. Shakespeare is one of the best things to be adapted. The adaptations of Shakespeare are all there's like millions of or thousands of them, so there can't all literally be good, but there's plenty of them that are just fantastic.
Oh yeah, Shakespeare was a fantastic.
Go ahead, Theo.
Oh, I just have to. Shakespeare was a fantastic writer. He got into a lot of deep themes that are just timeless because they were human themes. But also, he really knew how to write the highbrow parts, the lowbrow parts that everyone can laugh at. Hamlet absolutely cracks me up. It has my single favorite way of telling anyone to go to hell. It's about a paragraph long, but it's basically Hamlet saying, if you wonder where the person I killed is send a messenger up to go find him. And if he doesn't find him there, you can go down to find him yourself. Something like that.
There you go.
Obviously, I can't do Shakespeare justice.
Of course, my favorite Shakespeare joke is when Juliet is incredibly, let's just say, down bad for Romeo, and she's all like, "Oh my gosh, I hate the fact that I can't leave my house, and spirits come unsex me." So it's a joke because she wants to be a man to go meet up with Romeo, but she also, is down bad. No,
which is slightly weird when you remember the ages, but oh well, Shakespeare. I guess
Also,
Juliet was supposed to be written played by a guy anyway.
Yeah. Also, the single best adaptation of Shakespeare was the one in the 90s where they're all like have pistols and stuff and they're like talking in like still in the Shakespeare
I
accent.
saw that.
It's the best one.
That's the one.
Isn't there a moment where they they're in the car and the camera just shows was it the sword and that was the name of the pistol? It was like up on the.
And the pistols were
it was like
it had the saber on the side of it, so it's like
it was like
my cutlass, and it's a cutlass 1911. It's like that's great. It's perfect. It's just cheesy and glorious. So let's talk about 451 more. I would like to talk about some of the technology in 451 because I find it kind of interesting. That, as Shadow brought up, technology is both kind of bad in this book and good. I think if the book has any message, it's the idea that technology can be used to dumb people down is something we need to watch out for, which feels really relevant to this modern society. But there's a little thing I want you all to remember, and I probably should get this on stream, so distract chat while I pull it up, everybody. There is an ancient Assyrian tablet I want to show you guys. Because, that's just
I like
content you get here.
I wonder
if I poke it, does it zoom in?
Well, yeah. I got the quote, but I don't think I can find a picture of the tablet. But I'll just read the quote. This is from an Assyrian clay tablet, which we believe was fired in 2800 BC, which makes it 5,000 years old. This is among the oldest pieces of literature we have at all. So, here's what it says. Our earth is degenerate in these latter days. There are signs that the world is speedily coming to an end. Bribery and corruption are common. Children no longer obey their parents. Every man wants to write a book, and the end of the world is evidently approaching. I want all of you to remember this anytime anybody thinks things are terrible in the modern day. This dude was writing like before they even had toilet paper. They didn't have the wheel. And he was writing
didn't Cicero also write something exactly like that?
Yes.
Where it's like children don't obey their parents. Like
everyone wrote this. This has been a thing for literally ever. Everyone thinks that they are at the end of the world. Everyone thinks that this is going to be the generation where it all devolves into barbarism. And they've all pretty much not been correct at all. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, things go up, things go down, bad shit happens. But, I mean, the Dark Ages, it was really just a tiny part of the world. And that's the closest we've really gotten to that.
Yeah, there's a reason modern historians have taken a coin at the European Dark Ages. Because for places like the Middle East, they retained a lot of knowledge, which gave them a golden era.
Mm-hmm. Other places in the world, one country's like Dark Age is another country's Golden Age, One country getting like wiped off the map and everyone being enslaved is Rome expanding its borders and bringing in more wealth and food and like luxury than anyone else, Like Fall of Egypt, right? Rome conquered Egypt. That sucked for Egypt. Awesome for Rome, though.
2 big thumbs up for Rome. Big W.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
It was. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Stay winning. All right, I've got
So true.
Only
tablet
until
on
like
screen for
1,000
y'all to
years
read.
later.
There you all go.
But occasionally those people are right. That's all I'm saying. Occasionally those people are right. It really can sometimes be the end.
Sure, but I think
It can be
helpful to
an
remember. Yeah, but I think it's helpful to remember that everything's not as terrible as you think it is. Society can be fixed, and you can go back. Also, yes, don't forget to vote, you guys. Only one vote's come through, and I know who voted for it because he was vehemently and loudly voting. We have at least
What channel is that?
it's in the
What
live
channel
stream
is the
that you
poll
should
on?
be also watching while you're on the here to get my view counts up, boy.
There's been 4
Oh,
votes.
right. Okay.
I don't have the
Wait.
Wi-Fi for that. What is this?
Wait a minute. Why is there only 1 vote now? Someone did something.
What? There were 4 votes?
The whole
Yes.
time. You can check back in the VOD.
No,
wait.
there's been.
All right, I
I
just voted.
literally voted though. I've already voted, but
It
I
says
don't
there's
see
only
my
one
vote.
vote.
Yeah.
What the pissing shit? Are you shitting into my outstretched palm? Oh.
It just deleted my vote.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like there's some type of corruption coming in here.
So do I.
I can't.
Academia ending. I think that because that's much
Well, that's
more.
what I
It
voted
just
for.
deleted my vote.
I can't vote again.
Yeah, neither
So
can
it's
I.
stuck at 1 vote? Are you guys
Yes.
like on your YouTube accounts?
Yeah, I'm on
Yes.
my YouTube account.
Oh,
That's funny. That's
Oh,
amazing. Thank
boy.
you,
I think
YouTube.
you need to make this Discord poll.
Yeah, clearly I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to.
maybe make it a Discord poll.
Yeah, not all Farius said he
Wow.
voted, and there's only 1 vote there. Okay.
See, I'm telling you.
What the hell?
All right. Thank you, YouTube. So, by the way, if you guys are, I know this podcast is a little bit rambling today. If you have not been aware, I've been making fun of YouTube because according to YouTube, I've gained 40 subscribers in the last few days, but there's a ticker on the back end that shows you who most recently subscribed to you. My most recent subscriber is Legacy, who, if you remember, we had on the show like 3 weeks ago, and that's when he subscribed to me. So, yeah, it's quite.
What is going on with YouTube? They're not like just opaque. They're actively nonsensical. Like something that was just opaque would be okay, but they're just like actively just fucking around. What is going on? Who is behind YouTube?
They've existed for almost 2 decades. They've only gotten worse.
Listen,
Yeah,
guys, listen. It's a small indie company. They've only been around for like a decade now.
They're only
It's
owned
really
by Google directly.
Listen, small indie company, guys. Small
Yeah.
indie. They just don't have the funding,
So true, Oomphy. They probably just like have 700 chimpanzees, and that's actually how all the decisions are made. They found that runs at a lower latency, and it has a decently high % chance of working well. So they just 700 chimpanzees. That's it. That's the whole YouTube backend.
I can believe it. Oh, right. So
Anyway,
yes, I've got the poll up in Discord now. It's lagging a little bit, but it's going to post in a sec. And when it does,
So I guess you have to join the Discord if you want to be able to vote. It's unfortunate, but I guess this is just how it works out, huh?
it is. Anybody
Ain't
who
that
wants
some
to
shit?
vote solely here on the stream, though, if you don't want to join the Discord, I understand. Put your vote here. Say I vote for Rooney or My Hero Academia, and I will just count those votes on top of it as well. Since they broke everything, of course. Thank you, YouTube. Very cool. All right. So back to 451. So I think that views on technology dumbing down society is kind of correct, but in a way that I understand why it would think that. But I think something that we tend to forget, and this is not insulting anybody specifically, but most people are stupid. You got to remember that there's a lot of stupid people out there. I think it's George Carlin who said, think about the average intelligence of a person. The most average person you can think of. Half the population is below that. So you got to remember, there's a lot of people out there who are pulling the curve down. And those are the type of people who will just mindlessly consume content and talk to their walls. I do really like the symbolism of Mildred just literally talking to her walls, because that's what an insane person does.
Yeah.
And I think that...
Yeah, she literally just takes...
Yes.
She literally
I-
just takes sleeping pills and talks to her walls, and then has this like imaginary family that she follows religiously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of those points are very prevalent today. I think, like any sci-fi dystopian, it has to be exaggerated. That's the whole point of like illustrating the point.
Yes.
And there is some good comparisons to modern day stuff, like, people not paying attention to things around them, people not speaking up, dumbing down content. You can bring that up as a very valid thing. I think some of these things are more valid now in the internet age than they were in like the TV age.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
he was
I-
really freaking out, and he hadn't even seen Skibbity Toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had no
Oh.
idea how bad it really got.
Yeah, like he had no idea.
Soon to be a major motion picture.
I hope so.
Like we're into the brain rot era. He could never have predicted shit this fierce.
I don't know,
Actually,
man.
I did.
Although the advertisements everywhere, he definitely predicted. Now
I
that they're
also really
getting
like how, like you said, with the advertisers everywhere, it's also how everybody's so glued to their TVs. It's a plot point for them to be like, okay, everybody, if we all look outside together, we can find the terrorist. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
terrorists will be running
About
around
the-
the streets this late at night.
Mm-hmm.
So
About the
speaking
whole
of that, one thing I don't like, and this is a very common thing of like sci-fi from this era. The
Yeah.
idea that like the US is at war and that no one actually cares or pays attention.
Oh, don't you
Yeah.
worry. We're gonna have a whole section about that fucking war later. Don't you worry.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, for real. It needs. Yeah.
We're talking the good things right
You're
now.
right.
Trust me. You're not. I'll tell you guys
Okay.
this: you're not allowed to reference a single thing till after the dog disappears. Once the dog disappears, we're not talking about that yet. Up to the dog going away. That's the best part of the story.
Speaking of the dog,
Oh,
I love the dog. The
So
fact
horrible,
that
I
it's
love
just
it.
this horrific, this horrific like insectoid 8-limbed monstrosity that they just call a dog. And they don't have other dogs. Like they said that all animals they exterminated them. So this is what a dog is to them. It's just horrific that this insectoid monstrosity. And it's just a very like effective sort of like not really antagonist, but just bit of horror in the like tool of the antagonist that I don't know. It really
It's a
it
background
kind of
horror.
changes the tenor of the book. Yeah. It
Yeah.
kind of changes the tenor of the book to have this thing there.
Also, almost like a
just-
Lovecraftian mundane horror aspect, where this is so horrible, but it's just normal to these people.
Mhm.
I did
great.
think it was a little weird that it went down so easily just from the flamethrower. Like you think the one thing that they use to like
Yeah.
track down people would be resistant to fire.
Yeah, you would think that. That is
Especially
true.
since they say it's never failed. I guess later on we learned that it definitely has failed before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that
I just want to say
they don't need it to catch
I have a-
people in fires.
that's true. That's not usually what it's being deployed for.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
they have an innocent soft public that they deploy it on, so
Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah.
fireproof as well in society.
yeah.
Although there is the one woman who wait, never mind. The firemen are the ones who bring in the gasoline.
Yeah.
So this
Everything
really, yeah.
Fireproof is very strange to me. I don't know why. It feels like a very bizarre inclusion for some reason. I guess it's so that they don't need real firemen.
Yeah, I mean it's monopolizing the purifying force of fire to the state.
Well, no, I think the reason everything is fireproof is because that's an important that to me that's a very important detail in the world building. By making everything fireproof, they've removed the need for what should be a normal piece of society, the firefighters. Somebody who goes out there and is heroic. And when something that is heroic like that is no longer needed, I think it's really impactful to say, hey, the government's not going to get rid of this heroic thing. They're going to use it for their own means. They're going to change it, and they're going to alter the history so it's never what you thought it was originally. You see that happen all
That's
the
a good
time
point.
with like
Yeah.
the Texas Rangers and a lot of those border cops and stuff like that. They get slowly subsumed into the government, and it goes from the cowboy out there who's the lone gunman bringing justice to all of society to now, if you read textbooks, they're like, oh, these guys are actually agents of the federal government going out there to solve problems. It's like, well, no, they weren't. We have written records for these people that there's no feds around. That's kind of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I didn't read that into
that's
it.
why the firefighter works so well. I also think it tells you just how safe their society is. That everything's fireproof. That everything is problem proof. There's no actual issues in society anymore. It's definitely utopian in that aspect.
And the only time
So
anyone
in
ever
that one
sees fire
aspect, they still have
is
a lot
when
of very dangerous pastimes, like how fast they drive, which is a big plot point. And sounds, if I remember, I think they imply a lot of people end up dying to that.
Yeah,
what?
They imply a lot of people die for the
cars.
driving of teenagers and destruction, and that also goes back into the fact that there's a theme park they say that teenagers go to where they just crash into stuff and drive fast. This is talking. I think it's important because it's talking about how even though society looks perfect and looks manicured, the destructive and powerful nature of humanity is still on the inside. And I think this is something Dick is trying to talk about, or not Dick. Who's the author for Bradbury? Bradbury's trying to talk about is without an outlet of books, teenagers are going to be destructive. I disagree.
I don't know. I don't think that's really what he's going for. I think he's just saying that their society is devolving and their kids are becoming little savages. I don't think that he was going for that specifically in this instance. I think
Their society is basically built on instant gratification in every single way.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with where Kid was going with that because they have no outlets in terms of anything not physical. All the writing, all the sayings that could possibly offend, for example, you just can't do that anymore. So at that point, all you have left are physical outlets.
I think
if you remember the whole speech from the fire chief about how this is before the Hound, about how you can't offend the cat people, the da 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 da. But if you can't offend them, then how can you give out any of your gripes? Because your gripes are going to offend somebody because, well, they're gripes. And wouldn't you start to feel like a bottled up storm as you can't let anything out? And at that point, you only have one outlet of taking the hammer and destroying what you're allowed to destroy.
Yeah, but it's totally undirected destruction is the thing. Like it's just completely undirected. Like they're just wildly capricious and cruel. Like I think if it was,
I'm saying that's the result when you're not allowed to direct it. When you're not allowed to direct it, then it will inevitably become undirected and physical.
Well, I don't think that's true because like if they were specifically being repressed by like a force and they were very angry, they would go after that force. They wouldn't just wildly and capriciously do things.
Well, that's part of it. They don't recognize that it's any single specific force because, as the fire chief says, society is enforced on themselves until the government took it up, but it was still, society that started it. Of you can't offend those people, you can't offend that people, that person, these people, and eventually,
the firemen,
it's not a
for
single
example,
force, so they can't.
No, the firemen are very present. Like they're very physical. Like they're made of meat.
Yeah, but do you remember how the fire chief said that they only took up what society already started? So you can't even target the firemen for that because they didn't.
Yeah, but they're very obviously like a hand in society that will literally burn you alive. Like
they're the hand, but they're not the mind that started it.
No, but they are the hand.
Not really...
They're right there. That's what I'm saying. Like they would direct it at the firemen. They're right there.
The firemen clean up what society has already deemed terrible, and
I don't know. I think you're thinking way too far into this. I think you're thinking way too far into this. I
don't think I'm thinking far at all. I'm saying exactly what the fire chief said.
No, I mean you're not really. Like he is saying that's how it happened, but that's not how this is enforced. There's very clearly a force in the world that enforces these rules. It's not just enforced by a miasma in the air. There's guys who will burn you alive if you do the wrong thing. Like,
they're a force, but
right
they're not
there.
the driving force. And the fire chief implies that they aren't really the main force. The main force is the society, and then the firemen clean up like what gets through.
But they can't strike at a mystical, like, meta society concept. They can kill the guys who are burning people alive.
Well, technically, they avoid burning people alive. The book does say that that's not the usual way it goes through.
Mm-hmm.
Also, doesn't every single
Usually, the
house
authorities already move them.
every single house has its own incinerator, so it's like a bottom-up authoritarianism where
Yeah, that's
even
what I'm saying.
if people found a book, they probably wouldn't even tell the firemen. They just burn it on their own.
They might. I don't know. I feel like these kids would run down firemen if they were trying to, like, strike back at their oppression, because the firemen are the guys who kill people.
I don't know if it's intended. I don't think it's necessarily a wrong way to read it, though.
Yeah, sure. I just don't think that was, like, his intention.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think his intention was to say, like, that society had degenerated, and this is, like, what's gonna happen if society degenerates like this. Like, if
I agree.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting that the society, which is supposedly a utopia, is so very clearly and obviously flawed, but nobody inside that society wants to understand or look at to, like, what is wrong with it. I find that even though it's a common trope, interesting, because the thing that wakes up our protagonist from this just going through life, I don't know how the rest of you feel about it. I know we're told that this is the first time that they've ever had to do this thing. So for the chat, who haven't read it, the Prop 451, which you probably know from memes and just culture, is there's these guys called firemen. They go around burning the books, and society's moved past books because we have mass media and mass entertainment now, which is better. Okay. So they go around and they start burning the books of these people. We see several times that they go through and do their job. The thing that breaks the protagonist out of this whole books are evil, we need to kill all books mentality is they go to a house with a lady and they get all her books ready to burn, but the cops don't show up. So because the cops didn't show up beforehand, they got to deal with her. And they're like, you know what? Let's just drag her outside. She doesn't want to go outside. And she lights herself on fire after they doused everything. Like, all right, screw you, I'm out. Whereas to me, like, that's a weird thing for the protagonist to have as the incident to throw him off. Because he's been doing this, he said, for like 13 years. That's a long time to never once have a crazy person. Like, I know firefighters. They deal with crazy people monthly. Like, I know several people who've jumped into fires just, because they wanted to save a cat. Let alone these people who are so obsessed with these books that it's like they're drugs, essentially. That's wild.
Hey,
Well,
saving your cat.
Saving
your cat is a great reason.
He met the professor earlier, but that is also only one other person, like, in the whole time.
Well, the professor wasn't even like a hostile thing. The professor just poked at him a little bit and cracked the facade. This is like a shock. Like, holy crap, she killed herself. And then the other fire guys are laughing about it. That level of callousness doesn't feel right. If the other guys are all like, oh, man, you see how she popped? That's cool, dude. Like, you'd think it's going to be a more common occurrence.
Well, okay, I think for two reasons I'm fine with it, because the whole point is that the cops are supposed to be there, first of all. I think it's fine that it takes 13 years for this specific fireman to have a case where a woman sets herself on fire in there, because it's usually systematic that the police already take them away. But also, the book does make a point that the firemen were laughing a little too loud to cover her up and all that, as in they don't feel comfortable with this either, and they're just trying to get past and ignore it in the best way they can.
Yeah, a lot of jobs like that will have gallows humor.
Yeah, again, like I'm
going to tell you
my
father has said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I work with dead kids all the time. I know gallows humor, believe me. But this is different. This is somebody like actively killing themselves at you, sewer sliding for YouTube. When they're doing that, then it's the shock that wakes him up. This is what I think throws me off. Because there's not a single situation now where the cops don't show back up. That scene doesn't then say, and then the cop showed up 10 minutes later. Because had the cop showed up like 5 minutes later or so, and even though that's only one sentence, I think that would have added a little bit to the tragedy of like, oh, you guys were just in a rush. But like, otherwise, what were they going to do? Just not wait for the cops? I don't understand why they had to put out the fire so immediately. It's very clear they're not in so much like need that they're constantly running down these fire poles. They said that multiple times. It was like weeks before, they're just going to the site and he sleeps all day there, just, hanging out. It's monotonous and boring. They're just waiting for something to happen because it's a rare thing for these books to be found. I don't know. It's just strange they couldn't possibly wait for the lady to be taken out by the cops. Had there been
how
like
fast do they really need to go?
Yeah.
Where are the books going to go?
Yeah, the books
What,
ain't
like-
going nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of procedure. The whole there is part of the point that these firemen really love the allure of the fire. So you can't say that it's something that.
Sure, but like,
Yeah, they're all pyromaniacs.
that's fine, and I'm completely okay with that. I'm even okay with them just, going a little overboard and lighting the lawn on fire too, if you wanted. But like, you'd think they would have dragged her out just forcefully first before they started getting the kerosene everywhere. Like, I don't know.
You would think the police chief's a pretty smart guy from what we've seen throughout the story. You'd think that he would at least like make someone pull her out.
Yeah, and then again, this is just a way to rewrite it. She runs back in. I think that works better because had they pulled her out, then she ran back in. That almost makes it more like, wait, why would you go back into that? Versus standing there and just refusing to leave. I mean, that's different. They didn't even really try to drag her out until they already covered everything in gasoline. At which point she just pulls up the match like, haha, I summoned Exodia. It's like, okay, we're done now. Like, we have to get out of here because we're all going to die. Like, yeah, why did you do that? You guys are stupid. Like, again, the cops are like,
Are
right
we
over
supposed
there.
to assume?
Go ahead.
Are we supposed to assume that they wouldn't expect people to have things that can start fires since everything is fireproof? As we sort of went over earlier, the fire isn't really something that they expect the normal people to have to be able to do. So that makes the whole thing a bit more of a.
I don't think that's weird for them to be like, to not be ready for that. But it's because she kills herself is the thing. That's what catches them off. And I think that's what bothers me is like that's the incident that sets off the entire story. Where it's like, why would they be in that position? Had they said something like the cops can't come to this one because budget cuts, or even it was what I hated. Hey, a lot of the police force recently had to go get deployed for the war, so we're down some guys today. We got to handle it ourselves. Oh, okay. That sets up again that this war might be more important to pay attention to, which is very clear at the end of the book that the war is the entire actual point. But that's referenced throughout the entire book. It's this war that shows the escalation that, hey, the cops have to go help with the war now. That's weird, but that could happen in a critical time. All right. And that's why
and that would also build up the ending to being better. Yes. If there's little details like that in the book, like that actually seem to matter, then that would be good. Yeah.
And again, it's just one of those things because then I could buy, okay, they've never had to deal with getting there before the cops. And the reason, because they were a fine society, and now they have to deal with her, and they're woefully underprepared. Because now it makes sense as to why the only answer they have is to burn everything. They're a hammer, and everything's a nail. So that's why they're like, oh, let's light everything on fire, then we'll drag her out. Because, yeah, of course she's not going to want to be lit on fire. Not realizing what they're dealing with. That would have made the story a little bit stronger. And it's just, that kind of one of those things where like that kind of took me out when I was reading. I'm like, really? Like, I feel like, I don't know. But yeah. Y'all can jump into it. It's okay.
No. I feel like the other guys have probably seen this before. I just get the feeling that the other guys have probably seen it. especially the captain, but
Captain,
also
I
with how the
definitely
course the other guys are. I kind of feel like they may have seen this sort of thing before, and we're just supposed to get the impression that these guys are just the worst.
It's kind of weird. I agree. It does seem like he's supposed to be like the newest guy on the force,
Mm-hmm.
but he's been there for 13 years. That doesn't sound like
I
newest
must have
guy on
missed
the
that.
force story.
I must have missed that because I did not realize that he was there for 13 years. I don't know how I missed that.
So they say specifically early on that he's been there for a decade, and later he brings up the exact number. I don't remember exactly what it is.
Man,
But
I don't know how I missed that. I thought he'd only been there for a few years.
Which would make
see,
it
if it
better,
was
by
a
the way,
few
Patty,
years,
because he also said they just got the third
It would make
TV
it better,
a
yeah.
few months ago. Because I'm like, wait, 13 years and now
Mhm.
only you got the TV? Well, that's weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Had this been like his second or third year on the job, oh wow, that completely changes the
Mhm.
story and makes it so much more interesting that he's got this problem.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. These are kind of weird decisions on like a story level to make. Because you could just not make that decision. You know, like you could just not. It'd be really easy to.
nah, it'd be a real quick fix.
Yep.
It only honestly his age and how long he's been there, it only really serves the plot line with the dead girl.
Mm-hmm. Like him being significantly older.
Yeah, but that he's like much older than her. I mean, I guess it kind of like serves the plot line of like how much he hates his wife.
Yeah.
But
He specifically says, I positively knew was gone. The only thing I positively knew was gone was the books I'd burned in 10 or 12 years.
10 or 12 years, yeah.
well,
Yeah.
it's a long ass time. But
Mhm.
it only serves for like the scene where he's like, "Oh yeah, I've never had a kid. My wife, she's never wanted kids."
I feel like that you could
Like
have
it,
even said that he recently got promoted to fireman and you make it like a semi honorific job. Maybe he was just like a Shake Shack employee or something beforehand. And now he's got this position. Well, no, like
he was a
you laugh, but
fire
I'm serious.
boy.
Like, that if he says I recently got this job, because then now he's gonna have even more mixed feelings. He's gonna even try harder to fit in, not screw it
Mhm.
up. He's got the added pressure
Yeah.
from his wife. Of, hey, you better not fuck it up. We're finally middle class. Don't be stupid.
Yeah. Also, like, how does one get selected to be a fireman? Did he say his pops is a fireman before him?
Yeah.
Yeah, they say it's his pops and his grandfather. Oh, so that's another
So-
thing that doesn't make any fucking sense. That statement
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The whole like his father and his grandfather was a fireman. Maybe they don't say grandfather, but they definitely say his
They do
father
say
was.
grandfather.
Okay, so but this hasn't been a thing for that long. It seems like in actuality,
I
because
don't know. We don't know when any of this happened, right? So like,
My uncle says his grandfather remembered when children didn't kill each other. I think this was the girl saying it.
oh yes, my uncle
So my
remembered.
uncle says his grandfather, so that's like 4 generations.
that's 4 generations.
Okay, sure. But here's my counterpoint. The old man, one of the other main character effectively of the second half of the book, he was around before they started burning books back when they had like colleges and stuff. And there are other old timers, like there's the preacher, there's all the things Kit doesn't want to talk about yet.
Guys he met on a farm. Just keep them vague.
Yeah, the guys he met on a farm, all of those people, they were alive when this society changed to what it currently is.
I think there's one person who says they struck a fireman 50 years ago for trying to burn their library. So yeah, the time is a little iffy.
It's a little weird. Like that sounds like something that could have been fixed in the second pass, where it's like, these kind of don't fit well.
Yeah, these are just elements that don't fit. That's really strange. I almost wonder if that's a thematic choice. Like, because nobody quite knows, like, with how they've destroyed information, like, nobody quite knows exactly what's going on. But surely you couldn't destroy information that fast. Like, people do pass word of mouth, you know?
The greatest
That's
example
another
of this is the Chinese Communist Party, who's got the most effective and powerful control of any information ever, still to this day fights people talking about Tiananmen Square. And that happened, 30 years ago? And there are still kids to this day who know about it.
It's like 88 or 89. It was
Yeah.
right around the time the Soviet Union fell.
Yeah. So they still have to deal with that situation, and they're still constantly battling and fighting, trying to get that recensored. And that's them having complete control over all society and all aspects of it. And like they censor everything. You can't even type out the date.
Yeah.
You can't even type out like a number that equals all the date, the digits added up to the date. Like they're so strict about that censorship, way more than this society seems to be, and they still talk about it.
I guess chalk it up to the author making a wrong prediction. That happens. Read sci-fi. Authors make wrong predictions.
But this coupled with the ending, this which we're gonna get into in a sec, bothers me because I'm like, I feel like this book would have had such a better impact and a bigger gut punch had you just not screwed it up.
What else has Ray Bradbury written?
That's a great question. Let's find out, chat. Let's go.
Let's see. Fahrenheit 451, The Martian Chronicles, Dandelion Wine. I don't even know what I was going to say there. The Veldt, All Summer in a Day. Let's see what these are.
He wrote
Something Wicked This Way Comes. I feel like I've heard of that.
Yeah, for
phrase,
sure.
Though, so.
The Illustrated Man, The Halloween Tree, October Country.
Let's have chat join us on the stream. Let's see. How am I going to do this for you all, chat? I'm a streamer now, so don't worry, boys.
Oh, baby.
It's going to be...
So Something Wicked This Way Comes as part of a dark fantasy trilogy, yeah? That takes place. It looks like urban fantasy in the Midwest. Hey, that's kind of funny, Pag.
That is kind of funny, yeah.
Given your newest book.
Yeah, given my most recent novel.
Yeah.
It is urban fantasy set in St. Louis. Well, around.
Yeah.
Here we go, everybody. I got Wikipedia on screen for everybody. I don't know why it should jump to the bottom, but there we go. Chat can follow along with us. So apparently the Martian Chronicles is super important.
Yeah. It's just a what if we America'd the poor Martians? At least from the synopsis I'm reading on Wikipedia. Basically, humans go to Mars. The Mars try to repel humans. Humans give them chicken pox. They die. And then the second part is, the second part is humans colonizing Mars, and fucking up the surviving Martians. All the settlers are from the United States, and they're all administered by the United States government. And then they rebel against Earth. Let's see.
I kind of want to make note that it's funny. In stories like there's movie adaptations of real stories where there's things that you can realistically do that to a reader audience, like chickenpoxing the Martians into extinction, where it's like that actually could happen. That's very realistic, but the audience will just won't believe it or will be annoyed by it. I find it funny how many things there are like that.
That's not realistic at all. That's not. There's no way that we would be able to give any sort of alien whatsoever a disease. We can only give a very.
It depends on if they use a DNA or an XNA. I would say is probably the biggest factor. But if they use a DNA, then I think that there's a good chance that there can be deleterious impacts from a bacteria, like going, hey, there is this nutrients in this creature, we can multiply, and they don't really have a way to kill us. We aren't really trying to kill them, but they just have a lot of stuff we can feed on.
Is chickenpox
kind of like with
bacteria?
Chickenpox, I think it's virus, but like with ticks, there's a and was it ticks? I think it's ticks. There's a bacteria. Oh, Black Death, that's what it is. Where it doesn't really hurt them, but it just divides in them so much that their stomach gets full, and then they vomit up all the bacteria into us. Now, making them vomit... Is that the name of the bacteria?
It's Black Death, Yersinia pestis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's how it impacts them, and having to vomit up because you can't eat sounds like it can impact you. It's there's a lot of ways they could kill without like directly killing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a virus, so I don't think it'd be able to infect them. Because they're alien. But yeah, I guess something that like a bacteria that could feed on something that was just free floating in an alien. Yeah.
So
Cheesy.
I want to cover some of the Wikipedia pages here because it's quite fun. The first thing he ever did to make him money was sell jokes to George Burns, who's a famous comedian back in the day. He also, when he was in high school, met Ray Harryhausen. And that's one of the things that inspired him to go with fantasy. He also used to attend the carnival frequently, and that's why he wrote The Illustrated Man and Something This Way, Wicked This Way Comes, which you guys talked about earlier. He also used to hang out at the Carnegie Library in Waukegan, Illinois, where he read Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, Edgar Allan Poe, Edith Wharton, Jessamine West, and a bunch of others. He really liked Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars series. So that explains the Martian stuff. He also would eventually meet Bob Olson and Robert Heinlein because they went to the same high school.
Oh,
that's neat.
Yeah,
very interesting.
And he also became friends with Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, and Theodore Sturgeon. Oh, and also A.E. Van Gogh.
It's kind of interesting how they all kind of ran in the same circles.
You find that happens a lot with authors, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very, very common thing that whenever you see authors, they have like these little pockets of like 4 guys that are all just buddies together.
Well, part of it is people inspiring each other. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if I were to ever write a book, as an example, it would probably literally be because I'm friends with Pag. And I'd be like, well, I mean, you know, if friends like inspire each other to start like doing certain things, they just, you know, everyone gets into it eventually.
Wasn't there somebody that did that with the author of Lord of the Rings? I feel like we talked about him recently.
Yeah, the Inklings. We talk about them all the time. They are incredibly important. C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were best friends for this reason. It's very common that, you know, you have like authors who all bounce off of each other like this. It's because authors tend to help keep each other accountable. That's something that is really important that the writing space has. They also pass around works to each other a lot, and it's easier for us to review it because as a fellow author, you kind of know when you're reading another author's work what they're roughly going for, or like what they're trying to set up, so you can ask better and more pointed questions. You know, it's just a thing that helps a lot. So, also, I want to tell you about this quote. It's going to make you hate him. He describes himself as a Midwest surrealist, and he hates the fact that he's called a science fiction author. First of all, I don't write science fiction. I've only done one science fiction book, and that's Fahrenheit 451. That's actually based on reality, though. The science fiction is a depiction of the real. The fantasy is a depiction of the unreal. So Martian Chronicles is not science fiction. It's fantasy. It couldn't happen, you see. That's the reason that it's going to be around a long time. Because it's a Greek myth, and myths have staying power. I like how he basically said, shut up, I don't want to have rules, so I'm just writing science fantasy. But did it in the most pretentious way ever. That's the reason it's going to be around a long time. It's a Greek myth, and myths have staying power. Could you...
Yeah, bro sniffing his own parts.
Oh, yeah?
By the way, Tio, the other book is like 10 pages. We'll be able to get to it easy, don't worry.
Yeah, the
All right.
book's pretty short.
Though I'm just let the Wikipedia scroll as we keep going. Back to the book.
I kind of want to talk about the end. I want to hit that. I want to hit it.
So before we get to the end, I do think I want to cover the next part. So he eventually finds a book. It's, I think it's cliche that he finds the Bible is the book that he gets given. It's it's weird.
It's hitting you pretty hard in the head. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I know he's a bit of a hack, but I feel like Roland Emerson did it better in that like movie where everything froze over, because like that one guy was clinging to the Bible and who was like a Jewish accountant. They're like, why do you care about the Bible so much? He's like, it's the light of civilization. when this goes, so does everything else. We can burn the tax documents first. It's like that to me, to stay warm. That to me feels like a much more interesting, like a guy who's never had faith gets turned to it, situation. And like, oh, we can't burn the Bible, you have to save it. Versus this lady literally had books stacked up to her ceiling. She easily had 3,000 books, and unless literally every one of them was a copy of the Bible, I don't understand how that works. Also, they say that Jesus is like a well-known figure, and everybody talks about him, and he sells Coca-Cola and stuff. That doesn't work.
How did they do that? Yeah, how did they do that?
Like, I'm fine.
Yeah,
with
I think
I think it's a similar idea to how the firemen were turned into what they are now. They just took everything from the past,
Yeah,
Sure.
I guess.
took it for their own, and
But the firemen,
George
when you-
Washington
well, go ahead, Sean.
gave virgin birth to Jesus. Sorry.
Right.
well,
but I was gonna say,
most of the
don't forget-
firemen
hey,
seem
Tia,
to
one
have
second.
forgot. It's just the fire chiefs.
Right. But the firemen have history. They still read the histories that they have, and they still have that pamphlet that talks about it. You cannot tell me that they somehow have kept Jesus around while completely getting rid of the Bible. That doesn't work as well as the firemen, because they'd have to have some pieces of the Bible.
Yeah, if nobody's read the Bible, then why have Jesus around? Like,
I think
for what conceivable reason?
the book says that they have the Bible. They basically took it and edited it and like dumbed it down completely. So that's why they have Jesus like selling
I see.
advertisements and shit.
I guess they probably do have some written material.
Because they still have comic books and like stuff that like doesn't require such an attention span.
Bro took a
So they
fat
pro-
shit on comic books.
They probably took the Bible and like made it into a comic book.
By the way, it's great as a kid to read the Bible as a comic. Second, though, but you see, I find it interesting because that sort of undermines the points of the entire story, the fact that they have some stuff left around. That's one of the things I find fascinating about this, because they have to have stuff like scientific literature around. And they talk about how they have engineering and technical books around, and how they really said, oh, art's dumb and gay, so we got rid of it because we're all about cool stuff like rocket ships and guns. And it's like, okay, but like that doesn't work for the theming of the book, because there's no reason they would get rid of some of these things. They wouldn't burn all books then.
Yeah. There's a lot of things I like about this story, and I understand why like it stayed around for so long. But there's a lot of problems with it, like as a story when you think about it. And some of the themes are still relevant.
Yes,
but...
and ironically, I think updating this, because I know there's a movie with Michael B. Jordan that just came out, I think that rewriting this book in the modern day is way better, because you have the internet now, because you have digital means. So, now that we have digital books, essentially, which can be digitally done, you don't need the physical books anymore. You can get much more into the censorship and the control of, that people have over the way digital things are distributed versus the physical things. That's way more interesting of a story.
I like
so
that
we
idea.
Should we should watch the modern one. We should watch the modern movie, right? And then we should watch Equilibrium.
No.
Equilibrium is great. Equilibrium is fantastic. Have you guys seen Equilibrium?
No.
You
not
should.
For a long time.
It's basically
very
Fahrenheit 451, but they burn their emotions.
Oh.
Yeah. So books are banned by proxy because it brings about emotions.
Yeah. Everyone takes pills every day to keep them completely emotionless. And it's basically the story of a fireman, except instead of fire, he has 2 guns and he knows gun kata. He knows gun fu.
Gun fu.
At this point, I think we should read Brave New World then.
I don't think Brave New World is like anything like it.
It's got some of the similar ways that they control the society.
With the happy pills.
Yeah. But the gun fu. The gun fu is the main. I don't know if you understand. The gun fu is the main thrust of it. Like, so, there's all this kind of cool stuff going around that it is Fahrenheit 451, but emotions. But gun fu is very important. I don't think you realize.
And it has Sean Bean in it as well.
Sure.
It does. It does have Sean Bean.
So I do want to eventually do an episode where we go watch several movies of the books that we've covered, because I really want to do that Japanese version of Door into Summer. Like, it looks like it's going to be either great or terrible. Obviously, we got to watch the 451 with Michael B. Jordan, but the next book we're going to talk about, Total Recall, is a fantastic movie. So
it really is. I've actually Yeah, I actually own that one, so I can.
I have it on DVD too. It's great.
There you go.
I've seen clips of it. The only thing I remember is there's the woman with the 3, right?
3 tits. Yes.
There is a 3-titted woman, and surprisingly, that does have some correlation with the short story. Boobs.
All right, so let's get to the terrible part
what's
of
next
part
in the
51.
yeah?
So, I did want to say one more thing
the
about
cool
the dog
part
before we
and
get
then
there.
the terrible part.
I do want to get to the dog first. I forgot this. I think it's really neat how the dog, like, when he goes to pet it, it, like, shoots its spike out to kill him, but, like, it does so slowly because it's implying it's probing, trying to figure it out. I like how the dog just hates him the whole time. It's kind of interesting that, like, it knows it's his sins.
Yeah. How long has the chief known?
Well, the captain mentions that he sent the hound to his house, and like, how did you know that
Well,
you were being
that's
watched?
not until a bit later. I wonder. This is my own theory of. I wonder if there's an implication that perhaps he smells a little like books.
Well, he's got like 30
But I wouldn't
books
know.
in his
Maybe
house.
he can smell ink. Yeah, maybe he can smell ink or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting idea.
But I don't know. What if instead the captain had just like programmed it to be slightly aggressive, just a little bit aggressive towards him? Maybe the captain's known all along. I don't know. Either way, if it can smell ink or something like that, that would be really cool. But also, if the captain knew the whole time, that would also be kind of an interesting twist.
I think the captain has known for a while.
Yeah.
Probably since before the book even started. And then when he takes the book after the woman gets burned, he's like, "All right, I'll give him this one last chance."
Yeah. Too obvious to ignore. Maybe.
It's moved into a new category at that point. He's like, all right, this is now a problem I have to actually deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's affecting your work performance.
Yeah.
All right.
Can't have that.
And then the hound gets set on him, which is the coolest scene. It's such a cool scene. We did miss the girl, the young girl. He meets a young girl early on, and she's like, "Do you know the taste of rain?" and things like that. And she kind of asks him some questions about things that he just never considered in his whole life. Somehow, this man has never asked a single like deep question to himself for the whole like, "Am I happy? Am I happy?" I've never asked myself that. I'm the kind of guy who goes,
"How do you feel about your wife?" Stuff like that.
Man doesn't know what he had for breakfast yesterday.
Yeah, like what the hell?
Man
so that part was a little bit
his head rotating.
Yeah. Like how much of an idiot is our main character? He is kind of an idiot, a little bit of an idiot.
Well,
let's be honest.
Look at who he's married to.
True, she's vile.
That being said, every woman apparently is completely vapid from what we've seen in the story. So,
oh my god, her friends are just as bad.
That's true.
Her friends are arguably worse in some ways. Like
although,
the ones
I thought it was great when he was really ranting at her, like, "How many abortions have you gotten in your fallow room?" And I'm like, wow, he's going really hard on this one lady. I have no idea why he hates her so much. He's not even his wife who abuses him.
Yeah. He probably just hates all of them. I don't know. I feel like the only other men he meets in the story are the other firemen. And only the captain among them seems to be like more intelligent than your average salamander. And he doesn't meet literally any other men the entire story, except I guess the professor. Oh no, and all of the guys at the very end.
Yeah, the guys.
Okay, every single one.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
So, like
never
I was
mind.
saying,
yeah, just all of the women are just terrible.
Except
women
for the
are
little
all
girl.
vapid. Yeah.
By the way, I will say right now, I got very
true.
scared because reading these old stories, they tend to have a bit looser morals.
Yes.
And there's a 17-year-old girl, and all of a sudden I'm getting flashbacks to Thomas Covenant. I'm like, oh no.
I fully agreed. When the scene where she's like rub this like flower on your chin, the scene if you're in love, I was like, oh no, please not again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My Lolita Express alarm started going off like, no. But then it's like, oh yeah,
I mean, it did rub off on her chin, so you don't know.
Yeah, she's like, wow, you must hate your wife. It's like, I don't hate my wife. Yeah, you do. The flower said so, retard.
Yeah, I really do hate my wife though. Looking at the flower,
I did think it was weird how quickly she left the story. Like her one,
yeah.
The
mean-
entire point of her character was to like plant that little seed in
I feel like
Montag's
the
head.
Bridge to Terabithia deals with sudden character death off screen way better.
Oh, that movie
Oh,
fucked
yeah.
me up, dude. I saw that in middle school. That killed me.
Same.
Oh.
Holy shit.
See, I'm just saying, there's ways to make character death off screen. Just, I don't know, feel like it has some impact. I feel like hers just was.
I think the problem with hers is she
too
just kind of
subtle.
disappears, and there's nothing
Yeah.
about like, there's no implied malice until his wife's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you she died."
Yeah.
Like,
it just kind of happens, and it's just like, oh well, all right. Like,
Yeah, like once she
I don't
plants
know.
that seed in Montag's head, her role is over, and she just serves no more
Yeah.
purpose.
I think I would have done if I was the author is have her not be there for a day or two, then have the house she lived in become abandoned, then have the or like have some flowers
Yeah.
be left out front, and then it gets abandoned, and now there's just flowers out front and it's abandoned. He's like, what the heck happened? And the whole time
Mhm.
he's assuming she's dead or she got cancer or what, I don't know what happened. And then his wife can be like, oh yeah, she died a week ago. Who cares? That would have had much
Yeah.
more of an impact. Because at this point, I just thought she just went to school. Until his wife's like, oh, she's
Yeah.
dead. That bitch dead. I was like, oh, wow, she's in school right now.
I mean, we do hear that. Didn't we hear that the house was abandoned before we end up finding out from the wife?
It's the same scene from the wife, though. Is my point. It goes on about how he's concerned going to work for a while. Then it's like, okay. Then on his way home, he sees the house is abandoned, and then that night, his wife's like, oh yeah, she left. She did.
Okay.
I was stretched out a little bit more. Had a little bit more of then he came home on Thursday, and there was nothing there. Then Friday there was flowers, and then Saturday they were all gone. Like building and establishing a time as he keeps looking, but he's still not quite brave enough to go knock on her door. And I can kind of not blame him. It's kind of weird if you knock on the door. Hey, is your 17-year-old daughter here? I want to talk to her. I'm the married
Yeah,
man who lives across the street with no kids. My wife's a bitch, by the
Yeah,
way. Me and your daughter are friends.
I love talking to
I met her
your
after school.
17-year-old. I
Yeah.
love that. Is he still around?
Yeah, she was
Like-
skipping school to talk to me.
She's skipping school to hang out here with me. I love talking to her every day. I would come home just thinking about how much I can't wait to talk to her. She showed me some new things I never
Talking
thought
about my love
before.
life with her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
talking about being in love together. I need to follow that up with her and tell her I still don't love my wife. Yeah. I think that she was an
Oh.
interesting little character. I find that the implied way she went is tragic because, the fact that at the end of the book, we find out that it's like that he thinks anyway, which I find kind of weird. I don't know why he thinks this outside of the teenagers tried to kill him. He's like, oh yeah, they ran her over, but why?
Oh yeah, these were the ones that ran her over.
Yeah.
Well,
I
we don't.
think
Yeah, we
the
don't
wife
know.
might have said that's how she died.
Well, that's what he
Yeah,
said.
he's just thinking to himself,
but-
like, that's how it happened.
Yeah, but then the fire chief's like, yeah, people like that, they just go missing sometimes. They burn alive in front of me sometimes. And I was like, that's way more suspicious, Montec. The fire chief's like, people like that just get burned alive sometimes. And he's like, I got a fresh flamethrower here. But you think the teenagers hit her? Okay, whatever you say, dude. What?
I personally murdered her. It was me, Montag.
So those damn kids.
I liked it. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh. Anyway, so the Hound chase scene, the only scene of action in this whole thing, the only
he
real
burns his
scene of
friends
action. I
alive
mean,
first. That's a scene of action.
Yeah, yeah.
well, the whole it's like a one long extended scene of action.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
But I think the Hound is the most I don't know. Yeah, I guess you could equally say it's the murdering the captain scene because that's super important too. But the Hound is what sticks in my mind.
The Hound chase is the coolest part for sure.
Being pursued by.
The importance is the captain being killed. That's the most important. That's the climax of the story, if you will. Everything happens, and then after that, it's all falling action and moving on. But the Hound chase is the coolest part. That's the part I'm most excited to see when we watch the movie, because I feel like that if they can get that right, that's got to be sweet.
Yeah.
You know,
just a panicky flight.
yeah.
And then they just kill some random guy.
No, you need a fall guy, right? So, fuck
They
this
always
guy.
get their man. 100% rate. And then
That's-
I guess his wife just never finds out, what happened to her
What's
husband.
weird is our protagonist,
Soon
Montek,
you-
has no guilt for this. He's kind of, oh, that sucks for
For
that
real.
guy. And I'm saying, like, that
Yeah.
sucks. That's it. You have nothing else to say? Nothing like, oh, the tragedy of humanity. Like, bro, you read the Bible. That's the only book you've read in your whole life. And you have no semblance of, hey, I feel like the tragedy of sacrifice of another man for my sins. That didn't cross your mind once. You read the Bible.
Yeah.
And
Don't
another
forget
guy
the
died
more
for your sins. Didn't
personal
come across
aspect.
it once. Go ahead.
Don't forget the more personal aspect where they say they have all the people with oddities like just on a list and they keep track of them. And so basically the guy who is out for a late night walk was in the exact same position as Clarice, who kind of means something to him, and was kind of in the same position of that guy of being watched by the government because they're odd.
He just got
There's
he
a
got
little
someone else's
bit.
Clarice killed.
There's a
Yeah.
moment where he feels bad, but it's very. He gets over it very
Instantly.
quickly.
Yeah, within like 2 pages. He's just like, what the fuck ever.
He gets over it faster than he feels bad about not being able to. He takes some more complaints like, I can't remember the book that I read, versus the dude who just got murdered for him.
Yeah. No big
Oh,
deal.
gosh.
Human life, not a huge thing. Which is also how they treat the fucking cities being nuked. Ah!
Yeah.
That happens
It
at the end of this
happens.
novel.
No, okay.
Listen, man.
Chat, I think you need to
Listen.
understand. So here's the setup we've got so far. This is a future
do so.
society. They've got robo-dogs that can sniff you within like 1,000 parsecs or some crazy stuff. That he barely gets away by soaking himself in alcohol and jumping in the river and just swimming far enough away that they end up having to grab somebody else because they have to do it quickly or else people are going to be concerned. Okay, that makes sense. But the dog still has a scent. They're still going to be searching for him. He can't go near a city. He washes up on a farm. At this farm, he meets a whole bunch of hobos who actually are ex-college professors and writers and
Brain
a
facts,
priest.
Brain
They're like
facts.
the intelligentsia. Okay. They have an injection here that they say, here, buddy, if we inject you with this, it'll change your DNA enough so your pheromones will be different so the dog won't track you anymore. That alone, fucking wild. How did you, A, have that,
Nate.
B, you're here. Thank God I washed up next to you assholes, not next to anybody else. And
Yeah,
the
we're
whole
waiting
time they're
for
over
him,
here,
PM.
then the next, 20 pages is them just complaining back and forth about books and not how
Yeah.
books are forgotten. And it's like, oh, don't worry. We've got a guy. He can make it so we all have photographic memory and we perfectly remember every book we read. And it's like, yeah, that guy over there, that's the collections of Plato. We know a guy over here is the collections of Chaucer. And the first thing that came to my head is, wait a fucking second. If you reading a book once makes it a photographic memory, how is there one guy? Like, shouldn't each one of you have written it down like the other guy read it? So now you have double the amount of people who've got it copied?
So they
Okay, well,
try.
to be fair,
so
they do make a point
try-
of why they don't write these down.
Yeah, they try to justify it, like why they haven't written it down, but it gets
Not a good
very
justification.
strange very quickly. Yeah, it's not a great
Have
justification.
access
When
to
did
a
they make the
serum
printing
that can
press?
change your pheromones. And when a society that
Yeah.
has dogs that track your pheromones, but they can't have a book?
Well-
They don't have the printing press? Like,
No. It's not that they. It's not that. It's that if they wrote it down, they would have papers, and they sometimes get frisked by the government. And if they had papers on them, that would be suspicious, and that'd be enough for them to
Yeah,
take them away.
the book
Well, what
says
if
But
they-
that
apparently, the fact that they exist out here is not enough to take them away. That I don't get.
yeah, the book knows they're out there, but since they don't have any physical evidence of wrongdoing on them, they just kind of leave them alone.
that doesn't seem
However,
to
one
jive
slight
with
problem.
the government.
Hang on, one slight problem. Why don't they write it down, let one asshole read it, and then burn it so they all have the memory again? Just write it down page at a time so you can okay, guys, today everybody's learning Shakespeare for the next week. Pass it around and just burn it after we're done, and we'll get everybody will know all pieces of Shakespeare.
So
Well, because then you'd have to carry papers around, even if those papers are blank, which I think those papers are implied to still be, suspicious to have blank papers.
But then how would they have engineering manuals?
Also, I would like to say I think another issue that we run into is that there's this whole long thing about how no individual is important, right? Like about like quashing your ego. None of us are like important. It's all about the greater whole. And yet only one guy knows any individual book, or they only know like chapters of it for some reason. It's very bizarre that no one is important, yet if any singular one of them dies, they lose all of that book.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah,
and
for
the
real.
premise is once you've read a book once, you're able to retain it perfectly, and they've got a guy who's got a machine that lets you have perfect recall. That's the premise for how these books will be saved. And not a single guy has shared it between each other. They don't have two guys who know all of Shakespeare. They've got one. At what point? Did
Yeah,
you
and they're
at
just
least get
guys living
some
out in the
stuff?
woods.
Yeah. And then, so that plot point was retarded. I'm sitting here as I'm reading this book, and I'm just going to tell you, you get the chat how's this going. So I'm like, all right, that's really weird. This is really lame. This is wrapping up really quick. There's not a whole lot left. Okay, so he's going to go to New
It
Orleans.
slaps in the face out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Little
He's going to go
do
to New
you
Orleans or
know.
LA and meet up with the professor because he gave the professor his life savings to go get, like his buddy who's a printer. And then it's like, oh, by the way, nukes drop, everybody's dead. Have fun. What? What?
Technically,
We
Faber
will
is
be
still alive.
needed. We will be needed tomorrow.
Yeah.
PM.
They're
hated
going to
this
be
ending
so
much.
important. Yeah, and like
The
what?
story.
I mean, it just comes out of nowhere, and it's just in the last little bit of the book, and they're all just like, "Wow, all of those people died, and I feel fuck all."
They do
Look at
kind
them
of
burning over there.
They do kind of mention the
What?
war a couple times, and the fact that they've already started and won 2 atomic wars. So I guess third time's the charm.
Yeah, I guess for them losing the third atomic war.
Yeah, and I don't mind the hints that the war's coming. Like, that's fine. But there's a difference between, oh, man, there's a war out there, and the city got nuked. My wife is dead.
It's
Hooray.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of problems with how the war is shown. Like we constantly get through the book, like the fighter pilots and shit.
Planes flying.
I don't understand how a utopia, like how this place can be so utopian, yet there's like fucking planes, like enemy aircrafts, like in the airspace.
Well, we don't
I
know
thought
that
those were
those
friendly.
ones
I
are
thought those were
enemy.
friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
what I
they're
thought.
friendly. Maybe they're friendly. But here's the thing. Part of like the whole America doesn't like see the consequences of their action thing, which is what they all want to bring up. Many stories do this. There's this whole idea because like all of our wars have been overseas. We don't have any wars here in the like in North America. So bringing it over though will immediately kind of stops the whole like disconnection thing. Like that's kind of the point. That's kind of like how it works in real life. So I don't understand this fetishization of like, oh yeah, even if the war was going on above our heads, we wouldn't care. I'm like, no, I feel like people would care. The main character cared, and he was busy with his own fucking shit for half the time.
And like,
It's bizarre.
And what's really bizarre is it sort of ruins the entire premise of the story. Like, I cannot think of a way you could have ended it more antithetical to the point of the story. Because, like, the idea...
An outside threat destroys them rather than the inside.
Yes, exactly. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, the society should just fall apart.
Yes, society should
It should
slip
get
into
nuked by
decay, or like these guys should go start a thing in the commune in the woods. There's so many ways that you could have had it. By the way, you know how fucking easy it is to make paper and like ink? It's really easy to do.
Yeah.
You can do it in the woods with the supplies that you have here. You know, it's hard. The problem with making books is making them like mass marketable. These guys would be like out in the woods doing like the Franciscan monks where they're hand copying everything, which would have been okay, but like the society is nuked. And I'm sitting there like, but why though? Like why was that the thing that as the author you picked to be the ending? This entire thing has been very much about man versus society and about how we need to make sure that we don't dumb ourselves down and allow ourselves to be consumed by the mass media. And then, like, the Chinese blow us up? What?
Yeah.
I mean, they do make a point of that a few times throughout the book, that the war will be the jarring that lets them, like, fix it. Let the war turn off the families. Our civilization is flinging itself to pieces. Stand back from the centrifuge. Like they kind of combine the outside and inside influences as those two will work together to create a situation which we can come in and do things.
I
So
mean, yeah,
I
it's
think
neat
that
for the main characters, I guess.
Well, that's the whole monologue about.
I'm saying the book.
Phoenix.
The book doesn't just want the internal influence. The book is saying you need the internal and the external together before enough jarring can be done, which has some historical precedent. I would think it's usually outside influence that
I guess
allows
that's fair.
empire change or destruction.
Yeah, basically every rebel group has outside funding. I don't think there's any successful ones that don't have outside funding. I think it's just a requirement historically. So you've got a point.
So all that, if you just talk about it from, because remember, this is a story. This is all bullshit he made up himself. So why would you have that be the ending? This completely goes against your themes. This is not a historical drama we're watching where it ends tragically because, oh, the guy walked into a tower and the tower was 9/11. Like, no, that's not what we're watching here. By the way, I forget what movie that is, but that's literally how one of those this ends, and it's still like that scene is stuck in my head. I don't even remember the freaking movie it was. It was like some like rom-com. And like it was wild.
What an amazing ending.
Yeah, it was wild.
That sounds
He's like happy, he's thinking of his wife, and he goes to the top floor and it zooms out of like his office building. He's like, I finally got the corner office in the Twin Towers. It's like, what? And it's like taking place in September of 2001. And you're like, oh no. And this movie was made like 2010, by the way. It's not like it took place back in the day. It's just a sad coincidence, like how Deus Ex predicted it. No, this was straight up. Anyway, so it's such a weird, like, complete, like, subversion of the theme. Everybody has dead and the main character. The consequences of like the idea that the book would have of you need to stand up for society, you need to face the consequences. If anything, the main character is vindicated and saved because he stood up for these things. Had he just accepted things, he would be dead right now, which goes completely against the theme of standing up for the good thing is a tough challenge. What are you doing, man? Why would you write like this? The main character is only alive because he stood up and did the right thing for the books. That doesn't fit
Actually,
your story at all.
It shits on it doubly because the whole point of the ending is like, yeah, we never know when we'll need to be ready and like all this stuff. Like we don't know if it's going to be our time or our children's time, and it's like actually it's going to be right now, like right this very moment, right now.
It's weird how many times they do that because they do that, but then also the same person, I think it was, says the cities won't be doing well in the next few days, and that's before the bombing happens.
Well, they know that
They
the war
do
is
seem to kind of know about it. Yeah. I guess
they
they
know
know
that
the war.
the cities would be the targets in any sort of war.
That's another really weird
Also,
thing.
do you want to?
Huh?
I was gonna say, do you want to talk about the monologue about the Phoenix?
Oh my god! Why don't you take a lamb? You've been kind of quiet this whole time, buddy.
Yeah. So basically, after the cities get bombed and everyone's dead, the guy who leads the camp of professors and all that talks to Montag about the Phoenix, which is he calls it like this damn stupid bird, which burns itself and then is reborn from the ashes. And they kind of compare themselves to the Phoenix, where now that society's basically been set back to zero, it'll be their job to kind of rebuild with their knowledge from the ashes.
And what bothers me about that is the idea that the Phoenix does that. It goes against the fact that a foreign threat did this. Like, it's not we don't hear that the world is like this. It's just America is like this. And it's specifically America because the propaganda is Benjamin Franklin started the firefighters in order to curb like the influence of evil British literature in the States. So this is a uniquely American problem that we're dealing with in the story, which makes it have to be a foreign threat that blows them up, which makes it completely against the metaphor of the Phoenix, which the Phoenix would have had gotten capped and come back. That's not what the Phoenix does, though. The Phoenix self-immolates and resurrects. It says so in the damn story. But that goes against the entire ending. Oh.
On a point that I'm not quite sure where to take it with at the moment, do you think it's interesting that that's the metaphor they choose to go with when they also have the fireman symbol be a phoenix?
I thought it was a
think that was
salamander.
specific.
It's a salamander and a phoenix.
Yeah.
Because they say the captain's hat, the sign of the phoenix on his hat. They also say there's another point. Montag. Come on. But he knew his mouth had only moved to say hello, and then when she seemed hypnotized by the salamander on his arm and the phoenix disc on his chest. The phoenix just keeps coming up as a fireman symbol.
Yeah, I think that it was.
Is the phoenix pod just driven up?
Yeah, this book is just like symbologically muddled.
Yes.
Like really like thematically and symbologically like just muddled at a lot of points. Just for no real reason. Just like I don't know why he did a lot. Like a lot of these creative decisions are just mysterious. Just why did you do
baffling?
that, Mr.
I'm looking at him.
I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, me too.
I want to know what. Yeah, I want to know what his like creative vision was behind this, or if he had one. Because what if he didn't have one? What if he just balls out, going at it?
I mean, basically, the ending.
Respect. Yeah, exactly. That's like how weird the ending is in the context of the rest of the story.
It's like it feels like it's the ending of a completely different book. I actually had to go back and I checked an audiobook and I checked another file just to make sure that the ending wasn't like I didn't miss some pages. It was so strange and abrupt. And again, it's antithetical to the whole theme of the book. Like, there's so many other ways
it like happens.
It. Huh?
Yeah, it happens, and that's just it. That's like I can't help but like stress the fact that the nuke happens, and that might not be on the last page of the book, but it's on the last 3.
4 pages. It's the last 4 pages of the book, I'm pretty sure. It goes, the nuke drops,
yeah.
They complain about it, we're all that's left, we've got this, boys, we are number 1, bros before hoes, book's over. What?
Yeah. Yeah, it is at the ass end, and it comes out of nowhere. There's not, like, they talk about, like, people having lost their husbands in the war, but they're not, they don't appear to be suffering any wartime privations or anything like that. There's no hint that they're losing the war, which it seems like is going on currently, and yet they say, oh, we've declared war now at the very end, and then they all die. Like, that's, like, are they at war or not? This whole book
about halfway through, they say that war will be declared any hour.
Yeah,
which is weird.
But he talks about that woman's husband having died when he's going off on how many abortions she's had. He talks about her third husband having died in the war, right? Yeah. Or was it her second?
No, it was her third.
He specifically says that. So like,
it could have been a previous war because there were the 2 atomic wars before that one.
Maybe, but again, why would you do that detail? That's just adding more chaos and muddling it.
Yeah, and also like, how old is this woman? It's her third husband. And she lost him in like a war. Like how long ago? The whole timeline is just muddy, because then there's of course the whole like my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather was a fireman, and then also like actually this whole society started 28 days ago.
Okay, technically that part could also be explained by the fact that they kind of just turned the historical fireman into. We've always been this fireman.
Yeah, I guess if his grandfather was a fireman, but his grandfather actually put out fires. But then, how is the like oral record gonna die in that time?
The time period is so weirdly short because we still have people who remember the old way.
Yeah, it's both very short and very long, and it doesn't make sense. Like these are internal contradictions that should have been worked out.
Another thing I want to bring up that really bothers me is one of the reasons that they said society got rid of all the frivolous stuff, such as, entertainment, is because they wanted to focus on sciences and math, which, very funny. But, like, that is antithetical to them being nuked at the end. You'd think, if anything, they are entirely too scientific, and they do something like make a plague to kill themselves because they didn't take an ethics class once.
Yeah. Are they good at fighting, or are they not good at fighting? Because if they're good at fighting and they've won 2 atomic wars, it seems silly to me that they could just suddenly lose the third one. which pretty much having your home cities nuked is like losing the war at that point. Like either you
Although
prevent
I
that or
think
you
you
don't.
could argue with the whole like centrifuge thing that they're kind of implying that the people they're making just aren't good enough to do it. You know, they're having the competency crisis.
Yeah. He could be implying that, but he didn't do enough to, like show that. But that could be. I agree that could be. That does make sense. But he doesn't do anything to show that, So anyway, on to a better novel and a better author, probably. Let's see.
I
The
keep getting
story
so
of
confused when you call it a novel because the
a
file
short
I
story.
have is like 17 pages.
It's only 17
Yeah,
pages.
it's not long. It's just a short story. It's just a few thousand words.
It is a horribly named short story, I will say. It is.
We'll sell your memories wholesale.
Yeah, that's not good for SEO, bro.
I
Come
think-
on, Total Recall's much better.
I think you should read some more Philip K. Dick. I like his titles. They're not conventional,
I'm
but
kind
I
of
think
joking. Don't forget.
Mhm,
There's we can remember for You Wholesale.
yeah.
I'm sort of joking because
But,
it doesn't fit in a YouTube thumbnail.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, if you buy it on Kindle, that's what it's called. It's called Total Recall.
Yeah,
as I found out.
I
But yeah, really good. Really good.
Oh gosh, it's so much fun. I very excited.
I mean, it follows the plot. Yeah.
I can do this. Hang on one second.
What you
I
got?
can
What
put
you
the original. Bada bing, bada boom. There you go, boys. So this is the cover I wanted to use for the thumbnail. I like this cover a lot. It's the red one where it says "We can remember for you wholesale." I'll post it in our chat for you guys to see. Since I know you guys are definitely on the stream, but some of you don't have data for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like this cover. I think it's fun. It's very ancient sci-fi feeling. That's definitely Arnie. It's legally distinct Arnie. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But
And other
yeah,
classic stories.
really
I
like
mean,
this
if you've
story.
seen Total Recall, yeah,
Total Recall is one of my favorite
It's very
movies.
different. Mm-hmm.
Those of you who the thing that you all know from Total Recall, for those of you that haven't seen it, the scene of Arnold Schwarzenegger where it's really red and he's screaming and his head starts to explode. That's from Total Recall. But
Yeah, he's getting the bends. His eyes are exploding.
Exactly. I think Total Recall, took this short story in a phenomenal way. And it really makes me want to see more Philip K. Dick short stories adapted, because if that's what they could do with, this, I would love to see him. But this was a very fun short story. Unlike the other thing we read, I love this to death. This will be permanently added to my library of things to recommend for people. It's short, it's sweet, and man, is it poignant. I'm not even going to tell you guys really the main plot stuff. I think you should just read it outright, just to start with. We'll cover it, but
it's so short that you can.
Yeah.
You've seen Blade Runner, right? So you've surely seen other movies done by Philip K. Dick, like movies of books done by Philip K. Dick, because there's that one. There's Through a Scanner Darkly with Keanu. I haven't seen the movie for that one, but I really want to. They did one with Tom Cruise that's based on one of his novels. It's Minority Report. That's based on one of his novels.
Oh, that's a great movie too. Gosh.
Yeah, great film.
Minority Report.
Yeah, Philip K. Dick is one of the greats.
I got to read the book for Minority Report. But yeah, so the short story for We Can Remember For You Wholesale. So it starts out with our main character. He is just some sleppy businessman who's just got a normal, boring job that nobody likes. And he's like, man,
and
my
a
day
bitch wife.
Yeah. And by the way, you'll find that common in sci-fi. And my bitch wife seems to be very, very common. It's not just boomers. It's everybody apparently has terrible wives. So, I feel bad for you, Pag. You got only a few good years left, apparently.
I guess so.
So, then his wife is terrible, because the whole time he's like, you know what, man? I would love to go to Mars one day. And she's like, but we're poor and stupid and ugly, so we can't go to Mars. And he's like, dang, you're right, man. we can't go to Mars, but I want to. And she's like, that's stupid. You should just probably sewer slide right now because we're never going to Mars. Go back to work, Pig. I have better things to do.
Yeah, you suck.
Don't
Fuck
you want to
you.
go to the ocean? We haven't explored that.
Exactly.
And then she
Go to
like
the
spits
ocean.
in his face.
Which is really funny that she's like, yeah, go to the bottom of the ocean, which feels like
Yeah, for real.
that feels like an insult, not like a real suggestion.
Yeah.
I don't know what to compare it
Yeah.
to, but it's just one of those things. I want to go to LA, and someone's like, hey, she's going to go to Compton. It's more your speed. I feel like it should be insulting you. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
he's like, screw my bitch wife. I've got a better idea. I am going to go to this company that implants memories, and they'll just make me think that I went to Mars. It's slightly cheaper than going to Mars, which I really wish the story said how much cheaper, because I think it'd be funny if it was like $10 or $20 cheaper, like just barely cheaper. But regardless, he goes there and he's like, all right, boys, let's do this. And like, don't worry, champ, we got a 99.9% success rate. We even do this cool thing where we'll plant memories in your head, and like we'll put stuff in your pockets, and then tomorrow we'll go down to your house and we'll drop some stuff off in your your desk, so you'll think that you were definitely there the whole time. And like, do you have any other specialty things? Like, I'm all, because going to Mars is cool, but why do something cool when you're at Mars? He's like, yeah, you're right. I should do something cool. Well, how about I'm an ex-CIA agent, basically. Like, great idea, buddy. That's one of my favorite modules. So here, you're going to be a CIA guy from Mars. Let's go do it. And while they're putting the stuff in there, they're like, all right, he paid us up front. Hell yeah, dumbass. So that they're going in and putting all the buttons. It's like, all right, overwrite the part of the memory. Let's just find any time of work that he was, doing something basic. Like, I don't know, a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, he was on a business trip.
Yeah.
He's like, wait a second, a business trip? So we should replace that? Yeah, a business trip to Mars. Oh, no. What did he do on this business trip to Mars? He's a secret agent, actually. Oh, no. We can't do this. We should wake him up immediately because we should tell him he actually was a secret agent who went to Mars. So they wake him up and like, hey, man, I'm sorry. We can't do this for you because it turns out you were a secret agent. So here's some money back. And
no, they don't want to tell him because they don't want to go on the bad side of the government.
That's right.
He comes back and they have to.
Yeah, so he wakes up and he realizes they gypped him. Then he goes back and gets his money back. And like, yeah, we're sorry, fam. And the whole time the cops are chasing him and everything. And he's like, oh, this is terrible. I'm a secret agent. I need to go undercover. I know. Instead of giving me a refund, you guys should give me new memories. And it's brilliant. I love it so much.
And so they do.
And it's just...
and there's a twist at the end, and it's great. I don't want to spoil the twist,
but it's
a
fantastic short story. Highly
you should really just read it. I mean, it's very short. You can just get right through it. And he also glossed over some details, which I think will be good to read as well.
I tried to on purpose.
Yeah.
The important details, though, is
very fun. And it's kind of a lot different than a lot of his other stuff. Having read Philip K. Dick's other stuff, this is a lot less heavy. It's kind of very amusing. It's an amusing short little anecdote where his other stuff is a lot heavier. There's not one mention of cod pieces, but there are bare boobs. One of the characters in there just, it's the future, so women just walk around with their tits out, spray painted blue and purple. Oh.
If I'm making a 3-titty lady. By the way, not all furious. The Schwarzenegger movie is phenomenal. We were talking about that. This short story is also great. It's amazing how they basically take word for word lines from this short story and put it in the movie. It's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very good.
I don't know. I'm so amused with this. Like, I kind of expected this to be a little lame, to be honest, because a lot of these short stories from back in the day, they kind of drag a bit, and I'm like, it can't compare to the movie. But no, it didn't. Because I find it's really weird. Yeah. Very rarely is the novelization and the movie both good. Sometimes the novel's fine and the movie really improves upon it and makes it good. Or the novel's great and the movie tends to crap itself. There's only a handful of times that I think that both are in sync and work together. And this is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both fundamentally different.
It just worked out. Yeah, they're different films. They have the same general idea, and they're following the same path. And they're both twisty. The film is very twisty.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's they both work out. They follow different lines, but they kind of follow. They rhyme, as George Lucas would say. They're both just good.
It's like the Shining movie and books. They rhyme. It's like the Thing book and original movie and the remake. That, by the way, the Thing remake is actually the John Carpenter's The Thing, because the original The Thing movie is kind of doo-doo. It's really interesting. Goes to show that you can remake stuff better. We just don't do that anymore for some reason.
We're really bad at it nowadays, but it happens.
Yeah.
By the way,
I think I've seen an old Twitter post or something that the movies you need to remake are not the classics that everyone loves and adores. It's the movies that are old that were middling but not great.
Yes,
that's what you should remake because you can make them great.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
You could the funniest thing is, to me, that's the easiest thing. It's already got a built-in fan base because you have a small thing. It's a named IP, so it's going to sell easier and much better to get marketing for. Plus, if you make it better, you can only go up from here. You can only improve the work.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you got a name for doing this sort of thing.
Yeah. There are so many great, just sci-fi movies. I can't tell you as a kid how many random sci-fi movies I'd watch that were fine or slightly enjoyable that I wish I would have gotten better versions of it. There's so many all those old basically Ray Harryhausen ripoffs where they have these claymation monster movies. Gosh, there's so many good things you can do in there. And just it's free real estate.
They just update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And worst case, you get something goofy like Sharknado, and now all of a sudden you've got a cult classic that makes $1 billion for some reason because it's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm also surprised someone like A24 is not the company doing this, because I know they're a bunch of artsy morons, and don't get me started on the Green Knight movie. Oh, gosh. But they spend money on a lot of their minor projects like this. And I would totally think this is up their alley. Right. Or streaming services. You kidding me? Like Netflix, come on, man. This is what you should be doing. You see the analytics of what movies people watch. Just find something that nobody owns the copyright to, or that the copyright is just dirt cheap for. Buy that and remake that. It's free money. What is that movie, Land of the Dinosaurs?
Eventually we'll have reason to discuss an A24 project.
Yeah,
probably.
But no, so this movie, I think it's called Land of the Dinosaurs. Basically, it's half a dozen humans from the future attempt to travel into a spaceship, but they get hit by an asteroid and it sends them maybe back in time. And they're trying to battle the dinosaurs the whole time, and they're trying to deal with it. It's almost black and white. I remember this film vividly from my childhood, and it's great because the dinosaurs are kind of somewhat monstrous, but then there's enough humans around that they're some guys are killing each other off. Who wants to bang this girl so he gets her husband killed? All these little plots going on, and wow, that's fucking free money right there. That's so easy to take that premise and remake it today, adding a couple more characters. And the cool part is you can make all these characters actually diverse and fill all these different roles. And because it's a modern film now, you can actually have these diverse people have different perspectives and different ideas. And it's free money. I don't get it.
That would require chops, and they do not have them.
They love and hate money so much; it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get the chops, you can't write the thing. That's all there is to it.
For all you writers, stop writing great stories. Start writing mediocre stories. You're not good enough to write great stories yet. Start writing things that are consistently good and consistently enjoyable. You will never make a magnum opus your first try. Stop it. Stop trying to take on these incredibly difficult ways to do a story. I cannot tell you how many times, I'm not going to call anybody out specifically, but they'll come out and say, hey, man, I want to try to write a story set in my fantasy or sci-fi setting. Okay, cool. What's the story about? Well, I don't know what it's about, but I want it to be told from a vampire hunter reading the letters that a vampire sent that, and he's transcribing them into a construction booklet, and that's the framework for the story. I'm like, why? Why are you,
what are you fucking so talking
complicated? About? Tell a fucking story first. Come on. Just tell me a basic story.
What are you doing?
I want to tell one from a second person alternative point of view where you are like an amnesiac remembering what you did in the past. You know, it's not a choose your own adventure book, because this is kind of like hardcore Henry, where you remember it's like, what are you doing? Just write a normal story,
Or-
you bad.
Wait,
Or
I'm
if
curious.
you
Would
want to
you?
I just want to say, if you want to do weird stuff like that, make that a short story. That way
you can
you
be
can like
experimental with
learn.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
short stories are awesome for experimenting, and if it ends up being good, and you're like, okay, I can write a full story, then write a full story. But most of the time, those experimental things, you'll write the short story, and then you'll be like, oh, actually, I'm satisfied now.
You got all the little bit you wanted out.
Or
I'm-
that thing was terrible.
I'm curious if you would warn against or advocate. If you would warn against to advocate for like Christopher Paolini. I can't pronounce that name, but you know he basically did full fantasy Star Wars.
That's a simple story.
The Aragon books.
Yeah, they're great. I think the Aragon books are fantastic for a 16-year-old's first attempt at writing. He did it right, I think, is the thing. Granted, his family had a little bit of a leg up because they had a friend in a publishing company, so they helped get it out. But the Aragon books weren't a success because they were published by a friend. They became more successful than one publishing company. They did become a bit of a phenomenon and are pretty well sold. Unfortunately, Paolini hates his Aragon series now. It's very sad. He's writing sci-fi now, and I would love to cover some of his sci-fi one day. But I don't think he did it wrong. If anything, he did it right, because Star Wars is actually a very simple story told brilliantly. Here's a real pro tip for all you people. The best stories ever written, all of them, are simple stories told brilliantly. You can add in so much more flavor and so much more interesting twists on a basic story. Because here's the thing, guys. When you're telling a basic story, you don't have to worry about all these weird secondary climaxes and tertiary plot points. No. Tell a basic story, and you can add so much more flavor to it. Because ask yourself, what is better? A steak that is cooked really well, that's well seasoned, that's, you have some delicious mashed potatoes to go on the side with it, or a peanut butter and cheese and a banana pizza. That's weird. I've never had that before. But like, why would you do that to me?
Yeah, you gotta know
Actually,
how
that makes
to cook
me-
before you can make variations.
I actually got to watch some movies, which I know for me is amazing, on the ship. Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's a really simple story about a mother and a daughter and just, their family troubles. And then there's a whole multiverse on top of that, but the core of the story is really simple.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's a perfect
Fantastic.
example.
Simple stories are good stories.
Yeah, like you said, you could take away all the multiversal stuff, and it's just an overbearing mother and her daughter trying to figure out their place in the world and deal with their awkwardness of the immigrant story. Like, how do I deal with a mother-daughter relationship? That's all it is. And then you have to throw the cool multiversal stuff on top, and you have to throw different dimensional things and all the other funky aspects. And it's like, oh wow, what a fantastic and new story we have here. All Star Wars is a kid who wants to go out and be the hero. It's the King Arthur tale. That's all the first Star Wars film is. And now you put space guys in it, you put Jedi, you got laser ships, you got the magic, and it's now the coolest fucking thing ever. And all it is a simple story. George Lucas specifically wrote the simplest story ever. He went out and got the book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces. He loved that so much that he brought the author on and had the author there the entire time to make sure that they hit literally every single point in that book. Because that's what he wanted to tell for the story. It's mathematically the simplest, most basic story ever told. And it became this huge success, and it's still one of the most fun movies to watch of all time. It's not that, don't try to overcomplicate your work. You will fail. It's not worth it. That's over. Any more points, boyos?
Yeah. Nope, I really like this short story. And I really like Philip K. Dick. You guys should read his other things, even if not for the book club. You should just read his other things. Seriously.
Listen to Pag, he has good suggestions.
Thank you. And Through a Scanner Darkly is fantastic, great book, and
the movie is
Do
very
Androids...
good as well.
I haven't seen it, but I really want to.
I recommend the movie incredibly. It's very good.
So
Oh.
here's some stuff for chat. Just so gonna wrap up. I think that we're gonna do a movie club again. We're gonna do a podcast where we talk about several of these books, movies that we've seen. I don't know when that's gonna be. Maybe it's gonna be like an extra podcast we do one of these weeks, not one of the mainstream ones like this Wednesday night. It'll maybe record offline. I'm not sure because I don't know how that's gonna work with copyright, and then maybe we want to show clips. But we'll figure something out for that. On top of that, I am going to be streaming with Nebula soon. So if you want to join us over there on Twitch, feel free to. Links will be posted in my server in the video creator section. A couple more notes. Currently, the poll, which is in my Discord, I haven't seen any more votes in the chat here today of people saying what they want to vote for the next week's podcast. The My Hero Academia ending is winning by 1 vote. So if you want to come flip that vote, come for it. Last but not least, there's going to be another vote going soon in book club chat where we're going to be deciding what the next book is going to read. Come over here and help make sure that The Stars My Destination loses once again to some random crap that somebody proposes. Or let's vote for it and I'll read it together. I would like to read it eventually, but it's just kind of funny that it's become like this white wolf that we can never get to. I almost think it's not going to get to the hype.
Keep on reading liquid garbage. Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty good.
I am looking forward to it. So, with that,
I mean, instead we should read like Tower of Glass or something like that. But that's fine. We'll read this one first. It's okay.
You want to propose Tower of Glass? I'll switch what you propose.
No.
I'll give you 2 proposals. You'll have a go-ahead to add.
Sure, okay.
No, don't do that. It's a trick. He wants to separate the vote.
I mean, you can just vote for multiple. That's
true. Yes, I'm always allowed multiple votes.
For as many as you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather everybody vote for books that they want, and we'll just see what's the most commonly wanted book. Instead of trying to make you pick between your 2 favorite parents.
Yeah.
All right, let's end the YouTube poll.
Yeah, so Robert actually ends up
working. Wow. The votes did actually come through. 9 votes. It just didn't update. It has the exact same vote tally as the poll in the Discord. That's funny.
Neat.
All right, chat. So it looks like My Hero Academia's ending is going to be next week. I think you're going to be a little bit surprised. Besides us obviously not liking it. Unlike a lot of other people, I'll just tell you guys this now. My take on it is that it's just like how we complained about Fahrenheit 451's ending subverting its own story. I think the ending of My Hero Academia goes against its themes, but that'll be for next week. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much for coming to hang out.